So guys, I don't want to harp on the same story time and time and time again, but we are unavoidably in a global crisis right now. All of us, whether you're American or not, we're all dealing with it. And the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden is invisible. Where is Joe Biden, guys? Where is Joe Biden? We don't know. Maybe Joe doesn't know where Joe is. Nobody knows. And that's a huge issue. Again, Bernie Sanders, the man that everyone has just assumed is no longer eligible for the Democratic nomination, that he's been eliminated even though it's not mathematically the case. He's out there every single day, multiple times a day, talking about this crisis, how we can survive it, how we can persist through it, and how we can build a social order that will mitigate any future crises like this one. Bernie Sanders held a virtual roundtable last night with experts on the issue, also hosting musicians and entertainment and stuff that gives people a bit of enjoyment and hope in this pretty bleak moment. That was Bernie Sanders demonstrating leadership, demonstrating compassion, demonstrating an ability and willingness to meet with the American people. And hundreds of thousands of people watched Bernie Sanders and his virtual roundtable last night, and I'm sure that had a positive effect. Bernie Sanders has also raised millions of dollars dealing with this crisis. He has shifted at least some of his campaign resources to actually serving the American people, proving that when Bernie Sanders said, "Not me, us," he goddamn meant it. Bernie Sanders meant every word of what he said, that it never was about him. It never was just about him becoming president. It was never just about him getting to move into the White House. It was about building a movement for and by and of regular working class people wanting to build a better social order, wanting to build a better world. And Bernie is proving that. Joe Biden is proving that all he can do is hide when America aches for leadership. Because again, while Donald Trump was basically calling all of this a hoax last week, he is now being seen as handling this crisis positively in numerous polls. The only reason that's the case, it's not because Trump's doing a particularly good job. Look at the United States record compared to many other countries. It's certainly below average. It's because the Democratic leadership, Pelosi and Biden and others, have objectively failed to push forward a counter narrative, to push forward a narrative that criticizes Trump effectively and then offers an alternative that will serve the American people better than what Donald Trump is offering. This isn't to say there aren't good ideas. Bernie Sanders has good ideas. AOC has good ideas. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib have good ideas. Maxine Waters also has a good proposal out. It's not even just the Bernie camp. It's not even just the squad. There's lots of good ideas coming out of the Democratic Party about how to deal with this crisis. Jayapal and Pauken and the Progressive Caucus have also come out with proposals, but they're not being mobilized by Pelosi and by Joe Biden, and that's why Donald Trump is getting something of a free ride in the public mindset, because he's the president, so he gets home field advantage on looking like a leader, but Joe Biden, the presumptive nominee, is nowhere to be found. It's shameful. And we saw that Joe Biden doesn't know how to work the internet. We understand that. We understand that Joe Biden doesn't know how teleconferencing works, let alone live streaming. We know this is a man woefully ill-prepared to lead in this moment. And this is a man whose ideas have been blatantly exposed as inapplicable for the world we now live in. Do you guys remember during the primaries, during the interview phases with the New York Times, when Joe Biden and others made such a big deal about choice, about how working class people love their health plans that their unions negotiated, and that Bernie Sanders, big government Bernie, wants to steal your health plan and he wants to force you onto a government plan? Well, what were we progressives saying at the time? Well, Joe, what if you lose your job? What if you get laid off? What if your industry experiences a downturn and all of a sudden you don't have a job and then you don't have health care? What choice does the worker have in that moment, Joe? And what do you know? this current crisis may lead to 20% unemployment. Those people will not have health insurance. Tens of millions, dozens of millions of people potentially could be rendered insuranceless because of this current crisis. And it exposes the flaw of connecting your health benefits to your employment status. That is the whole problem with the American private-based employment-linked insurance model. It doesn't serve people and it doesn't offer choice. And so Joe Biden, a man who could change his mind on Medicare for all and say that I'm the Democratic nominee or I'm the presumptive nominee and I'm going to lead by changing my viewpoint and recognizing the new struggle people face, is choosing to hide because he knows that whether it's his cognitive decline or dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever you want to call it, or whether it's his ideas being exposed as broken for the era we now live in, Joe Biden knows that every moment in front of the public is a moment that he's losing his grip on his potential presidential victory. We all knew, guys, all of us progressives at least, our Bernie supporters, we all knew that this was never about making Joe Biden president. This was about stopping Bernie Sanders from becoming president. Whoever it was, it could have been Buttigieg, it could have been Klobuchar, it could have been Bloomberg. It happened to be Biden, who was the person best poised to stop Bernie at that pre-Super Tuesday juncture, and that's why they all blobbed around him. But as soon as Bernie was sort of mathematically done, he's not yet, but the presumption is that he's done, then Joe Biden just went into hiding because there's no benefit. Joe Biden's not here to show leadership. He's here to stop Bernie. The mission is seemingly accomplished. And so they're basically going to cede the moment to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's ideas are not good. I've heard some progressives say that he's running to the left on this issue, but he's not. He's really not. He's not in any meaningful way. But the reason Trump, again, he's being seen as doing a decent job, even though he was calling this a hoax a week ago, is because the Democratic Party isn't showing leadership via its presumptive nominee, Joe Biden. If you want to win this election, I underlined this yesterday, you cannot just hide in a bunker, Joe. You cannot just hide out in Wilmington, Delaware. You can't just give 7-minute press conferences once a week. You can't just stare into a camera in one live stream and then walk off the side of it in another. That's not good enough. You need to be ever present, showing that you are a credible alternative to the current president. You have not done so yet. The only man that has done so is Bernie Sanders. So again, I implore people, this is not over yet. The primary is not over yet. Make Bernie Sanders the nominee while you still can, because the Democratic Party elite would rather lose with Joe than win with Bernie. But I know working and middle-class people can't afford that sort of game.